And what is up, everybody? Welcome into Locked On SEC, a live reaction show edition for the college football playoff. We're going to be getting the college football playoff rankings revealed here momentarily, and we'll find out, excuse me, exactly how many SEC teams the SEC will get into the playoff. And all the conversation is down to Alabama, and does Alabama deserve a shot? Have they earned a shot? And it's kind of becoming between SMU and Alabama, and we're going to get into it. There's actually some tweets coming out right now that we will get to, but let's get started. This is Locked On SEC. We're going to dive into all of it here.
You are Locked On SEC, your daily podcast on the Southeastern Conference. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And what is up, everybody? Welcome to Locked On SEC. It's great to have you guys along. Today's episode is presented to you by our friends over at FanDuel. You can start the season with a big return over at FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet, and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets. If you win your first $5 bet, visit FanDuel.com today to get started. I'm Chris Gordy. Thanks for making Locked On SEC your first listen every day. And, of course, remember to subscribe and check us out on YouTube or wherever you get your podcast, Spotify, Apple, iTunes, and all that. All right, guys, let's dive into it. Ranking show is underway. We're going to find out here momentarily who is in, what the seedings look like, and all this. Before we do that, let's rewind a little bit and let's revisit what the rankings looked like just a week ago. And this was their college football playoff rankings where you had Oregon, Texas was 2, Penn State. Obviously, these are going to change because Texas took a loss to Georgia. So you're going to see some movement here. Georgia, obviously beating Texas, is going to move up, and they'll be an automatic top 4 seed. So you've got that going. And then, the big question is, where's Tennessee going to go? I've seen some of the projections are still they're going to be going on the road at Ohio State potentially. But, Oregon won the Big Ten. They're undefeated. They're going to be the number 1 team. I think that one is a given. Texas will not be the 2 seed. Like I said, Georgia won the SEC, so they jump into this top 4. SMU did not win the ACC. That was Clemson. So SMU falls out of here. And Boise State capped off an incredible season. By the way, Ashton Genty, incredible. For those who haven't watched, now I've seen him a handful of times this season, but he was just as spectacular on Friday night in the Mountain West Conference game. He has been ridiculous. What is he, like 100 yards or something away from Barry Sanders' record? Like it's absolutely crazy. I know people are like, well, they don't play anybody. Still, if it were that easy, guys would be putting up 2,000 rushing yards every year if it were that easy. He's special. But regardless, Boise we expect to be in. Where these rankings kind of came last time out was you had Boise was 10, Alabama 11. The first team out was Miami, who was 12th. Ole Miss was 13th. South Carolina 14th, and Arizona State was 15th. Well, Arizona State won the Big 12 title game, so they are in. So they have a bid in here. And we'll see what the matchup will be. But anyway, this is, again, guys, this is last week's rankings, last week's projected bracket, and obviously some things have changed here since we've last gone over everything. So what's kind of transpired here in the last 24, 48 hours is, a lot of discussion on, whoever lost the ACC title game. Was it, if it was Clemson was obviously out. If SMU were to lose, does that boot them out? Because looking at their resume, they don't have a lot of great wins on the season. And this is where the real debate gets into between SMU and Alabama. SMU, I will give them credit. When they beat Louisville, they were ranked number 22 in the country. When they beat Pitt, that was a good game too. Pitt was on a heater. They were rolling. They were number 18 in the country. They were playing very well. I give them credit for that one. That was their first. I want to say they were 7-0, and that was their first loss of the season. So again, like we said, they didn't play anybody. You got to give them credit. Pitt was a good team at the time, and that was a good win for SMU. For Alabama, man, it has just been this roller coaster season of ups and downs, highs and lows. Out of the gate, they looked awesome against Western Kentucky. Week 2, they kind of played around with South Carolina or with South Florida for a while. That thing was close for about 3 quarters, and then in the fourth quarter, they pulled away and did their thing. Week 3, they went to Wisconsin. Now, Wisconsin's quarterback got hurt early, but again, you still got to play the team you're playing, and they ran away with that one, 142-10. Then came the reckoning, that big game against Georgia and in Tuscaloosa. And Georgia and Kirby Smart, Carson Beck played probably their worst half of football ever under Kirby Smart. And Bama jumps out to the big lead, and everybody's like, oh my God, Alabama's a real deal. The second half was a different story. Here comes Georgia storming back, getting stops, getting turnovers, doing what they need to do, scoring touchdowns, and they take a lead. Then we have the ridiculous Ryan Williams catch where, Bama takes the lead again, and then Georgia's driving again, trying to tie this thing to send it overtime. Carson Beck throws the ball into the end zone. Xavier Brown picks it off. Bama wins. It was a great win for Alabama, but it also was, if you were being real with yourself, saying, Bama's kind of got some warts, man. Like, better teams, you get a huge 3-4 touchdown lead on a team, you put them away. You don't leave the door cracked for them to come back. But nonetheless, it was a great win. And then what happens immediately? They go on the road and lose at Vanderbilt. And, just got out physical by Vanderbilt in the trenches, particularly Vandy's O-line pushing them around. And, it was a devastating loss. It was Vanderbilt. Alabama should never, under any circumstances, lose to the Vanderbilt Commodores. But regardless, they come back. They host South Carolina the next week. They're 3 touchdown favorites against South Carolina. And, here comes Lenora Sellers. They make some plays late. They, they get the ball back. They had a chance at a field goal late. They don't get it, but Bama escapes with the 2-point win. But it's funny because in hindsight, we're looking back going, that's a great win. That's head-to-head. You beat South Carolina head-to-head. But in reality, we're looking back and going, you were 3 touchdown favorite and you survived against South Carolina. Then the next week they go and offense can't do anything in Knoxville. They lose to Tennessee. They come home against Missouri. Remember, Brady Cook was hurt. They end up, he's like, I'm going to play in this game regardless. He plays. He was terrible. They go to Drew Pine. He throws 3 interceptions. Bama wins big 34-0. But why that game matters is Mizzou was ranked 21 at the time. It's a ranked win. It matters for their resume. And then, they had the bye week. And then out of that, just the absolute debacle in Baton Rouge, where LSU played their worst game of the season, get absolutely obliterated in the rain that night. Jalen Milroe just ran all over him. Didn't have to do anything with his arm, just ran. And they won 42-13. And suddenly we're going, this is it. Bama's in the playoffs. Like, all they have after this is Mercer and Oklahoma and Auburn. And that's it. Well, they beat the hell out of Mercer, but they go and lose at Oklahoma for their worst loss of the season, 24-3. Offense doesn't score any touchdowns or anything. And then the Iron Bowl, they played sloppy. They turned the ball over, but Auburn couldn't do anything offensively, so they win that one 28-14. I keep saying any other team with a heartbeat of an offense, I think, would have won that game. So regardless, here we are, Alabama at 9-3. 5-3 in the conference, and they're back into the conversation. Why? Because of their resume. They have, ranked wins over Missouri, LSU, and of course the big win over Georgia, who is now the SEC champ. Well, Greg Byrne, Alabama AD, he took to social media yesterday, kind of making the case, saying, look, strength of schedule matters. Not all schedules and conferences are created equal. 6 of our 8 wins are against bowl eligible teams that have come against some of the top teams in the SEC, including the champion Georgia. I'll say this. Venues matter, right? Like, we talk about schedule and equities and all this. I think Bama won that game that night because the game was in Tuscaloosa. I feel like if we flipped it and if that game had been in Athens, I feel like Georgia wins it. But regardless, it's a win on Bama's resume. You can't take it off. It's a great win. Here's somebody brought up to me, though. The fact that you lost to Oklahoma and Vanderbilt, both 6-6 teams. Do you realize both Vanderbilt and Oklahoma are bowl eligible because of their wins over Alabama? Like, when you put it in that perspective, when you say you 6 of your 8 wins against bowl eligible teams, yeah, great. But what about your 2 losses? Your 2 losses are against teams that barely became bowl eligible. They only became bowl eligible because they beat you. I think we can't gloss over the fact that Bama lost to 2 bad teams. Like, to me, if this had been Bama law, and the Oklahoma one was 24-3. Again, like if they had lost on a last second field goal, you can kind of excuse it, right? But this is where the tough part becomes, because a lot of Bama fans are saying Clemson is a bid stealer of SMU in this scenario. Bama's not necessarily jumping SMU. They're not stealing SMU's bid. Clemson took SMU's bid by beating them last night, and Bama was 11th, and they should still get in. Now, again, we're going to find out here shortly at the playoff rankings, but Brett McMurphy just tweeting out, and this may be all you need to know. And Brett McMurphy's pretty strong, works for Action Network, was with ESPN for years, but he tweeted out breaking: SMU is in the playoff and Alabama is out. Sources tell Action Network. So take that for what you will. I believe it's probably correct. But the interesting thing here is Ross Dellinger tweeted, he said on Saturday night, Clemson became the first ever college football playoff bid stealer. Did the Tigers swipe a spot from SMU or Alabama? Of course, Rhett Lashley, for SMU head coach, said after the game, it would be criminal if we are not in. Nicole Auerbach tweeted this out. She said, the funniest thing about saying a team has no top 25 wins is the committee can always backfill spots 20 to 25 to give teams top 25 wins. And that's what's really funny about this, is like, you could change the narrative as the committee if you'd like. She said Louisville and Duke could easily be placed in that range, which would then give SMU 2 top 25 wins. So yes, SMU beat Louisville, who was top 25 at the time. They beat Pitt top 25 at the time. But if we're looking at the current top 25 rankings and you want to say, oh, well, they don't have one, you could give them one. You could easily put Louisville and Duke into the back into the top 25. But somebody tweeted that said, yeah, you're getting there with how all this works. The committee can do whatever the hell they want. And this is where I think we're going to have drastic change when it comes to the future of the playoff. And let's get to some of you guys in the comments here. Donnie Wilkerson says, dogs. Connor says, either you punish a team for strength of schedule or you punish a team for making the conference championship. I agree. That's what's so tough about this is for SMU, it's like, you didn't win last night. Now, look, that game was looking like a blowout earlier. Same thing with Penn State and Oregon. That was a fun one to watch. But like that thing was looking very sideways, and then SMU battled back and made it look respectable. Or not only respectable, but they tied the game, and then Clemson got the huge return and then sets up for the long field goal, and they win that way. This is what's so tough about it, man, is like Alabama didn't play yesterday. So do you ding the team that didn't play yesterday, or do you ding the team that took a loss yesterday? Like, this is where it becomes really difficult, because like, a lot of people came into with the mindset of saying like, hey, if you made the playoff or if you made the conference championship weekend, they can't fault you for that. Like if you made conference championship weekend and you take an L, that still is better than anybody who did not play yesterday. But we've seen in the past, Alabama has gotten the benefit of the doubt. They've not played in the SEC championship and still gotten in. So again, how do you reward it? Let me just get to a couple other tweets I wanted to mention. This one said, if Bama is left out, there will also be a lot of demand for easier schedules moving forward. Bama didn't lose to tough teams. They lost to Vandy and OU. Tide actually played pretty solid against good teams. They went 3-1 against the top 25, wins over Georgia, South Carolina, Missouri, and lost to the Vols. This is going to be very interesting too. Like, and I've been saying this about those week 1 games, like Georgia beat Clemson, and that's great. But at the end of the day, that didn't really help Georgia very much. Like, and it's a great win in retrospect because Clemson ends up being the ACC champion. But had Georgia lost to Texas yesterday, I still think they would have been in. But I don't think we were looking back and going, oh, it's because of the win over Clemson in week 1. Like, it seems to me like those week 1 non-conference games, why the hell you're playing them? Brian Kelly at LSU knows, first and foremost, like, why are you playing those? Why are you going and playing Florida State on neutral sites? Why'd you play USC this year in Vegas, which you lost? Like, what happens is in college basketball, these are great resume builders. Kentucky winning at Gonzaga last night in basketball, great resume. At the end of the year, the selection committee is going to sit in a room. They're going to go, that's a great win. That, look, it's going to elevate Kentucky a little bit because of that win. The college football playoff committee is not doing crap about, like, they don't even care. They're just doing whatever the hell they want. Like, and this is where it becomes difficult because the argument over strength of schedule and all this. Like some teams, they argue strength of schedule, and then other teams, they argue, well, they passed the eye test, right? And then that's the problem when you start to talk about some of those teams that are ranked up top who haven't really played a bunch of people. When you look at Penn State, go, well, who have they beaten? By the way, this is fascinating stat. I had to go look this up yesterday. Do you know James Franklin at Penn State has not beat a top 10 team since 2017? And that was against Wisconsin in the Big Ten title game. So it's not even like it was like some behemoth. James Franklin is, I saw somebody said he's the Lane Kiffin of the Big Ten, but Lane Kiffin finally won a big game this year. He beat Georgia. It's just kind of a funny argument because like James Franklin, like every year, go look at Penn State's schedule every year. When they play Ohio State or Michigan, who's top 2, top 5, whatever, it's loss. But Penn State is in, right? And like everybody is just arguing they deserve to be in. Connor says SMU's best win is Duke. Bama's is Georgia. Yeah, again. A says SMU would be lucky to make a bowl game if they were in the SEC. I mean, I tend to agree. Like, look, here's the tough part: is you kind of have to put down SMU here. Like SMU's had a great season. I don't want to poo-poo them, but also, you know, this is where you have to ask: do resumes matter? Do we, you know, should we be discussing who you've beaten outside of just you went 11-1 or 12 and whatever? You know, like. And there's no exact science here. That's what makes this whole thing so difficult. And there are so many schedule inequities. There's schedule inequities in the SEC. I've been the one beating the table for weeks about Texas's strength of schedule. It's been, you know, like they avoided 5 of the top 7 teams in the SEC this year. So, all right, we're starting to get to, it looks like the ESPN crew is finally starting to get to a point where they're going to start revealing some of this. Connor says if Bama gets left out, they should drop the SEC, join the ACC, and get a guaranteed playoff. Yeah, this is what's funny, and I brought this up. Like for Lane Kiffins and those, like for Ole Miss, you know, you were hurt by playing a brutally tough schedule, and your win in a normal year, your win over Georgia should have been enough to elevate you, but you lost to Kentucky early in the year, and you lost to Florida. The SEC is tough, man. Like DJ Lagway took the reins of Florida and they started to look competent and the offense started to get good. Now, like, and here's the other part. Texas was so damn fortunate that they hosted Florida, by the way, in Austin, but they got Florida when Aiden Warner was still the quarterback, like Aiden Warner, the Yale third string transfer. Had that game come a week later when DJ Lagway was healthy, that's when Florida beats LSU, they beat Ole Miss, and they beat Florida State to finish on a 3-game win streak to finish the season. Again, when you lose to a team. Somebody just texted me, said Georgia is the 2 seed. So we'll see that when it comes up here. Here's my other gripe before we get to the rankings here, and they're coming out in just a sec. The committee. Did you guys see the video of Heather Dinich she was posting video and pictures of the playoff committee. This is them in a room at this hotel in Dallas yesterday watching the games. They had a big setup of TVs with all the games on. Nobody has a notepad in their hand. Nobody's taking notes. They're all just sitting there like they're just, you know, like this guy's got a coffee in his hand. Like, what are y'all doing? This is the crew we've assembled to decide the fate of the college football playoff. This looks like like an HR training for a bunch of Walmart execs. Like that's what this looks like. This is the crew we've assembled. I don't know, man. I've made a big case for. I think like in reality, look, everybody's got bias, right? We're all inherent bias. If you're a fan of a certain team, you're going to want your team to get in, do well, whatever. But I think you'd be better served bringing like 20 average Joes off their couch and putting them in a room and letting them decide this. Like, I feel like they are more qualified to make assessments on who's good and who's not than these buffoons in this committee. And our friend Caroline Fenton, she tweeted out, she said, I'm hearing a lot of the CFP committee is setting a dangerous precedent if they leave SMU out. She said, this isn't the Supreme Court. There's no such thing as precedent here. The playoff committee can and has and will prioritize whatever different data points every week and every season. And somebody else brought up, and the committee changes. It's not the same people every year. So this whole thing about setting precedent, there is no precedent. This thing changes every year. They left Florida State out last year because their quarterback got hurt after an undefeated season. They knocked Georgia out after they lost by 7 to Bama in the SEC championship after Georgia had been number one basically the entire year. So, again, changes year to year. They do whatever the hell they want. And, all right, here we go. We're starting to get some of the rankings in. So the top 4 is set. Oregon is the 1 seed. Georgia is the 2 seed. Boise is the 3 seed. And Arizona State is the 4 seed. So there's your top 4 highest ranked conference champs. Remember, and again, this stupid rule is so arbitrary. I'd like to do away with this moving forward in the future. But ranking the top 4 highest ranked conference champs, moving them to the top, I just think needs to go away because to me, your ranking should be your ranking. If Georgia was number 2 in the final rankings, that should be what they are in the seeding. Moving them to the front of the line, we don't do that in basketball, right? If you win the SEC championship in basketball, you get an automatic seed, but you're not guaranteed a top, like a 1 seed. We don't move you to the front of the line there. So why are we doing football? Like, and I guess the whole argument is, it's tough to win a conference. Well, yeah, sometimes. And then other years, it's not. Other years, there's crappy-ass conferences that people win. So we'll see on that. All right, we're getting into all right, we got our top 4 seeds. Clemson is in as the 12. So Clemson will go on the road in the first round. And we're about to find out, it's like we're going to find out who they are going to play on the road. By the way, SEC goes 2-0 against Clemson this year. Georgia beats them, and South Carolina beats them. So Texas, wow, that is a big, big first-round game. So we've got our first-round game announced here, as it will be Steve Sarkisian and the Texas Longhorns. Congrats, your SEC runner-ups. They're the 5 seed. So Texas, the first team outside of the top 4. So the best team in the country, outside of the top 4 conference champs, highest ranked conference champs, is the Texas Longhorns. That is a hell of a game in 2 weeks in Darrell K. Royal Stadium. Dabo Swinney versus Steve Sarkisian in a playoff team. Now, the winner of that game will get Arizona State. And then that next round will all be on a neutral site places. And that's where I think the quarterfinals, like the Sugar Bowl, I think gets they're guaranteed to get an SEC team in. So that may be Georgia. Whoever Georgia will play will be in New Orleans for the Sugar Bowl. We'll find out on that. We'll find out on that in a little bit. Yeah. Modern Kissson said, hey, they're smiling because they already know Bama is going to end no matter. I don't know. We're going to find out on Alabama. It feels like they are going to be left out here. All right. Penn State is the 6th seed. So they will be at home hosting somebody. So we're going to find out that in just a second. But back to Texas and Clemson. I think that's a hell of a first-round matchup. And that's not an easy one for Texas. Phil Maffa, the running back who's been a stud for Clemson, he got banged up but came back into the game. Cade Klubnik has battled all year. That's going to be a tough one. But look, Texas is going to pack the house. I mean, that's going to be an awesome environment in Austin. D-Car is going to be rocking. And our buddy Chris Marler brought this up the other day. He said that's actually pretty the better scenario for Texas probably would have been or not better scenario, but like it's not so bad that Texas lost a close one to Georgia yesterday, because you can kind of lick your wounds and refocus yourself and say, hey, are we serious about this? Quinn Ewers, do you have that dog mentality? You get to kind of reset yourself, come home and host a home playoff game. Texas fans are going to sell out that stadium and they're going to be loud and rocking. I mean, look, Texas, if we're being real, they should beat the hell out of Clemson, this Texas team. Trey Wisner did not run the ball very well yesterday. They need to get back to that ground and pound. Look, this gives them another 2 weeks to get Kelvin Banks back healthy. Their stud left tackle, who's going to be a top 10 pick in the draft. Obviously, they missed him yesterday in terms of protection. I thought early on they protected Quinn Ewers pretty well. They gave him some time to throw. But yeah, so there we go. That's the first home matchup. It is Clemson, the 12 seed, at 5 seed Texas. And then your other 3 teams that are hosting home playoff games next, I think this is next week, right? In 2 weeks. It'll be Ohio State as a home team, Penn State is a home team, and Notre Dame is a home team. And just to give you the seedings on those, it is 6-seed it's 5-seed Texas, 6-seed Penn State, 7-seed Notre Dame, 8-seed Ohio State. So what does that mean with pairings? Well, the Ohio State winner is paired with Oregon. The Penn State winner is paired with Boise State. And then the winner of Notre Dame versus whoever, we're going to find out in a bit, is going to play Georgia. And like I said, I think that's going to likely be in the Sugar Bowl in New Orleans on New Year's. But we'll find out on that, on specifics in a little bit. So still waiting to see who these opponents will be. I think the one to watch is that Notre Dame one. Is that going to be Alabama or SMU? Again, Brett McMurphy already tweeting out that SMU is in and Bama's out. But we'll wait to get full confirmation here. All right, here we go. Tennessee. Gosh, Tennessee, I feel, again, they were projecting this, but this is absolutely brutal. The Vols have to go on the road at Ohio State in the first round. Look, Dylan Sampson has been awesome running the football. He's been, the SEC leading rusher all year. He's been an absolute stud. But having to go on the road at Ohio State, Josh Heupel, I feel bad for you, man. They did you no favors here. Like, you got to go play Ohio State in the Horseshoe in round 1. Absolutely tough, man. Nico, put your big boy pants on, man. And I get it. Ohio State just lost to Michigan. That still is a damn good Ohio State team. Quinshon Judkins running the football. They've been really, really good. Connor jumps in here and says, with Clemson ranked at 16 and ACC champion not getting first round bye, Bama has to be in over SMU. We will see, Connor. We will see. We'll find out here in just a little bit. But yeah, to recap real quick. So 12-seed Clemson is at 5-seed Texas. 9-seed Tennessee is at 8-seed Ohio State. So Josh Heupel at Tennessee. Y'all want to win a championship? This may be the toughest run ever for a champ, because let's just look at the path real quick. You're literally talking Tennessee would have to beat Ohio State in their house in Columbus, Ohio in the first round. You win that one, then you have to go to a neutral site game against Oregon and beat the number 1 team in the country. And then if you can get past that, maybe we're talking about having to go play Texas in the semis. And then maybe you get to the championship and you're maybe facing Georgia or whoever there. Absolutely brutal, brutal draws there for the for Tennessee Volunteers. And I'm working on a graphic. We'll get this up in a little bit, and I'll be able to show you guys what this looks like. But let's see. We've got the other matchup set. We've got it's 10-seed Indiana at 7-seed Notre Dame. So the winner of Indiana Notre Dame is going to go to play Georgia. Like I said, probably in the Sugar Bowl. So now they're doing, ESPN is doing the resume comparison between Alabama and SMU, and they keep bringing up Alabama with the 16th ranked strength of schedule. SMU was 60th. Now they're putting up wins, losses over teams of 500, and they were showing 5-1, 5-2, whatever. Okay, so we got one spot left. This is it. This is going to be the final playoff pairing in the 12-team field. It's all come down to this. Is it SMU? Is it Alabama? Feel like it's probably going to be SMU here against Penn State. And by the way, Penn State, you lucky ass, they luck out. If they get SMU in the first round, this is Penn State's path to the Final Four this year would be playing a home game against SMU and then playing Boise. Like, come on. James Franklin, go ahead and send a Christmas card to Ward Manuel and that crew. Send a bunch of thank yous to them if that's how this one plays out. And again, we'll get the graphic up here for you in just a second, show you the full field of what this looks like. It's SMU. There you have it. So it's officially official. It is SMU into the 12-team field. And so Bama is left out. And look, to be honest, Bama, you can only blame yourselves for this. I mean, if you had taken care of business just 2 weeks ago in Norman against a bad OU team, you'd be in the playoff right now, hands down. I think this is where we can bitch and complain and talk about strength of schedule and all this. But I said it for a couple weeks. I said Bama's loss to Bama's losses to Georgia to Vandy and Oklahoma, not outweigh is the right word, but like those to me cancel out your great win over Georgia. Because again, like had you lost, if we're talking about Bama had lost to Tennessee, I don't know, give me two other ranked teams, LSU and Missouri. Like let's just say those teams were in the top 25. To me, those are more excusable. Oklahoma and Vandy barely made a bowl game. So to me, that's where like I gotta ding them. I gotta ding them for saying this. You didn't. Your two losses stink. Your two losses stink, and they cancel out your good wins. I don't know. What do you guys think? If you want to chime in, we're doing a live video here. If you want to give me your thoughts, we'll throw it up here. I'm trying to get this graphic up here to show you guys the full final field, the playoff field, and how it is set. And here we go. Playoff CFB 5. All right, here we go. Saban is now saying coaches shouldn't have a complaint. You controlled your own destiny and you lost. All right, here we go, folks. Here is the field, the 12-team field as set. This is what they just premiered. So your final playoff rankings, Bama fell. I guess Bama stayed at 11, but Arizona State and Clemson both jump up because they're conference champions. So there you have it. So Oregon 1, Georgia 2, Texas 3, Penn State 4, Notre Dame 5, Ohio State 6, Tennessee 7, Indiana 8, Boise 9, SMU 10. And this is the field. So look, these are going to be some fun playoff games. I don't know. Indiana, Notre Dame doesn't feel super attractive. SMU at Penn State doesn't feel super attractive. But certainly Clemson at Texas and Tennessee at Ohio State are huge marquee first-round games that are going to be very attractive. Hang on, let me just add here. Still going. So look, Texas at home should be able to beat Clemson. They should be able to beat Clemson. Texas, this team, that defense is so physical. Like we just saw what South Carolina did to Clemson and kept them off kilter. This Texas defense, the way they're playing, I mean, look what they did to Georgia yesterday. I know Georgia ended up on Gunnar Stockton and, he made a couple decent throws, but this Texas defense has been one of the best in the country all year. I think they are absolutely going to be swarming to the ball, and it wouldn't shock me. The more I start to think about it, the more I think Texas should blow out Clemson. Clemson doesn't belong in this. Look, give them credit; they found a way to get out with the win against SMU as they were surging late. But I think Texas should win handily, especially playing at home in Austin against Clemson. And then in the quarterfinals, they get the fourth worst team. Arizona State's had an awesome year. But is Arizona State really, are they really one of the best teams in the country? This feels like a pretty good path for Texas to get to the semis. Only problem is that potential matchup with number 1 Oregon in the semis. So Terry chimes in. He says, I agree, Alabama should be out. Yeah, look, they made a compelling argument because of resume. And that's what's tough. As SEC fans, we look at it and say, who have you played? Because that's the thing. Whether you're a Florida fan, an LSU fan, an Ole Miss fan, a South Carolina fan, we look at it and go, this is a freaking grind. This conference having to win every week. Steve Sarkisian said it last week, and they got the easiest draw of the entire conference. Texas's strength of schedule in the SEC ranked 16th out of 16th. They were dead last in the conference in terms of who they played. In fact, I made a graphic here. This was yesterday. Let's see if I can pull this up. Again, not trying to poo-poo Texas. I just said I think they have a great chance to get to the Final Four. This was Texas's schedule. Look at all the teams in the that are highlighted. Those are the teams. This is the top 8 teams in the SEC this year. Texas avoided 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of those 8 teams. They beat A&M, and then they lost to they lost to Georgia twice. So Texas's strength of schedule was crap in the conference, but They got rewarded. They got the luck of the draw. Whereas South Carolina, it's like, oh, sorry, you had to play LSU and Alabama and, you know, all these other teams. Again, like, had that been, swap out those opponents for anybody else, any other schlub in the conference. Kentucky. Like, if you had Kentucky on your schedule this year, outside of Ole Miss, who lost to them, like, that was an easy dub. So, anyway, I'm just bringing that up because, like, I get the frustration. I hear all the time from SEC fans out there. It's like, God, we got to go through this juggernaut. And then you look at what SMU had to go through, and they played Nevada and Houston Christian and BYU and in the conference playing TCU, Florida State, Louisville, Stanford, Duke, Pitt, BC. Yeah, like, ask a Florida fan if they'd rather have that schedule right now. And it had to play Cal and Virginia and Boston College. Hell yeah, they would. Shorty says Mizzou got robbed. Look, man, Mizzou. Here's the crazy part with Mizzou. This thing was set up for them to go 10-2. Like, this way the schedule was set up, all they had to do was beat South Carolina, and that one was a crazy ass shootout. But losing at A&M and losing at Bama, if Mizzou had just taken care of business against South Carolina, they would have been 10-2. They would have been in this conversation. They could have made a compelling argument. Now, again, who did they beat all year? Well, their one ranked win was Boston College, right? So again, you want to start getting the resumes. But we said at the start of the year, like, Missouri, Ole Miss, and Texas, I felt like had the best draws of the schedule because we kept looking at it. This was the whole narrative over the summer was Ole Miss and South Carolina, Ole Miss and Mizzou just have to go 10-2. Because we looked at the schedule and said, man, okay, Ole Miss has like about 2 tough games. Mizzou has 2 tough games. Even if they lose both those games, they're 10-2 and they're in the playoff. Now, A&M ended up being better than we thought. So that was a tough one for Mizzou. I mean, that was that from the minute that game kicked off, it went ugly for Mizzou. But the good news here is for a lot of these teams is your schedule stays the same next year. It's the same opponents, just home and away flip. And later this week, by the way, we'll do a whole episode of Locked On SEC on it. Later this week, we're going to get the schedule for next year. You know your opponents right now. You just don't know the dates. We're going to find that out here coming up. I think it's Wednesday. ESPN and SEC Network will release that. But yeah, look, for Texas, they're throwing a freaking parade because if you had an easy schedule this year, you got an easy schedule next year. Now the tough one for them, the home game against Georgia is now an away game at Georgia. That's going to be tough. And by the way, Texas, I do give them credit. They went out and scheduled a road game against Michigan this year. It turned out Michigan was the reigning national champ. It also turned out Michigan had a mass exodus of talent, and they weren't as good this year. But that was a nice road win. Texas opens next season on the road at Ohio State. I give them credit for that, man. That's huge. Let's get a few more you in here. I know, except it seems every person on Texas' easy schedule people keep losing to. I agree with you. Like, that's the thing. Like, the big argument for Texas fans is, yeah, we had a little bit of an easier schedule in the SEC, but those teams we beat lost to inferior opponents. And I agree. But I think part of that, you got to talk big picture as well. Bama lost to Vanderbilt while it was off of an emotional home win against Georgia. And, it was like a lot of these spots, like Tennessee loses to Arkansas, but it was on the road at night at Arkansas. A&M really only had true road games this year at Arkansas and at A&M. Now, A&M, when I give them huge credit for, they showed up. They absolutely beat the hell out of the Aggies in College Station when every Aggie and Farmer that night wanted them to lose and was screaming their heads off. You want to Arkansas beats Tennessee, Kentucky beats Ole Miss, Vanderbilt beat Bama. Yeah, look, the Kentucky one against Ole Miss was literally, like Lane Kiffin has to be up all night thinking of that one, kicking himself because it was a fluke, like 4th and long, and Brock Vandagriff just throws a bomb up, and I think it was Dane Key or Barron Brown comes down with it. It's a first down for Kentucky. The Vanderbilt beating Bama, they just out-physical. I mean, there's no excuse for that one. But the Arkansas against Tennessee, like Tennessee did not play well offensively that whole night. There was a night game on the road in Fayetteville. Those fans were live. They were making the environment tough. And that's where I just say, like, playing on the road at night in the SEC is absolutely brutal. I brought this up a few weeks ago. Like, the playing on the, like, I think this is the difference in the SEC on CBS contract versus this new Disney, ESPN, ABC contract. With ABC and ESPN holding the rights, they wanted to put the premier big matchups, the big SEC matchup each week at night on ABC. CBS would put it in that 2:30 Central, 3:30 Eastern time slot. How many times have I heard SEC fans over the years say we want a night game? I mean, Lane Kiffin was bitching about it all year. Like, we want night games. We don't want to play. We hate these 11 a.m. games. Well, let's be real though. The afternoon games on CBS sucked because for fan bases like LSU and Ole Miss, like, you get less tailgating. You get less time in the day to liquor up and get ready for the game. Night games on the road in a hostile environment are absolutely a difference maker. And I think we saw that this year. The ABC primetime ABC SEC versus SEC games, we saw more upsets than ever in that time slot. And I got to go back to look and see who all those games were. But it just feels that way, right? Like the Arkansas win over Tennessee. If that's an 11 a.m. game, does Tennessee lose at Arkansas? I'll say probably not. Maybe even Georgia at Bama. If Georgia and Bama had played at noon, or is the outcome different? I don't know. I just know at night when I've been a bunch of SEC schools this year for games. You walk into that environment at night. Fans have had all day to liquor up and get ready, and they're screaming their heads off. It is a difference. It's a difference maker at night than it is in some of these other environments. Again, we'll do a whole study on it, and I'll get back to you. We got all off season to get into it. Nick said, "How did Mizzou get robbed?" That was in response to the Shorty comment. Billy says Alabama's out. Yep. Hand in hand. I'm sorry. I hate Bama, but to be fair, Bama is better than Indiana and SMU probably. Again, this is the tough part of schedule inequities is who you play, and again, it's all about. Did you have an easier cakewalk of a schedule than other teams? But to my point I was trying to make was we've schedule inequities in conference. Look at the schedule that I tweeted this out because did you guys see when they were on the podium yesterday, Kirby Smart literally just took the microphone, like Greg Sankey had just spoke, and he took the microphone back. I think, was it Laura Rutledge interviewing him? And he calls out Greg Sankey and the offense for giving them the tough conference road schedule. This was Georgia's road games this year. At Kentucky, which, by the way, Kentucky played their ass off that night. Their defense absolutely shut down Georgia that night. Georgia was lucky to get out with the win. Then they were at number 4 Alabama at the time, at number 1 Texas at the time, and at number 16 Ole Miss. And by the way, they lost the Ole Miss one. And they lost the Alabama one. That's that's 2 top 5 teams on the road you had to play, and then another top 20 team on the road you had to play. And you look at Texas's road schedule, they had to play at Vandy, who, by the way, Texas had more fans there. Every SEC team that played at Vandy this year had more of their fan base there than Vandy had fans. They were at Arkansas and at number 20, Texas A&M. Again, I give Texas credit, but that's their best. Somebody asked me that yesterday. I said, "What's Texas's best win?" I said it was at Texas A&M a week ago, and it was an awesome win. Don't get me wrong, but it was also like the toughest win that they had to get up for all year. I mean, outside of the Georgia game that they lost, I think a lot of other SEC teams would have taken that schedule. But yeah, to the commenter's point, go look at SMU's schedule, go look at Penn State's schedule. Again, I can't get over the Penn State, like every time James Franklin plays a top 10 team, he loses. Every time. Yet we reward him and go, "Oh, Penn State's awesome." Penn State's the 4th seed, or I'm sorry, the 6th seed, but they were ranked 4th in the final college football playoffs. Who was their best win? Let me pull this up real quick. Penn State's best win, they beat number 19 Illinois. That's their best win. The other 2 ranked teams they played this year, Ohio State, they lost at home, by the way, and then versus Oregon yesterday in the Big Ten title game. God. James Franklin, you should have never left. Well, no, I mean, I guess I was going to say you should have never left Vandy. He was having great success there, but look at this. He just has to go to Penn State and just go 10-2 every year. You get rewarded with a playoff berth. Let's see. Hanahan, I think it's the only thing I got wrong. Indiana over Bama is wrong. Yeah, you can't really argue with it. Indiana's schedule was brutal. I mean, like, just brutal in terms of, like, who'd you play? Yeah, they're Indiana's best win. I can't even name it. They didn't play another ranked team. They played one ranked team, and that was at Ohio State, and they got the doors broken off, beaten in, whatever. Nebraska, Washington. I mean, you tell me what you think Indiana's best win was. We got to get back to conference divisions. I don't know about that. I like how yesterday played out. I kind of like the East and West, but that's where we get into schedule inequities. Like, at least in the East, when you played in the SEC East, you had to beat everybody in the East. When you played in the SEC West, you had to beat everybody in the West. That's what's tough with Texas, is they avoided 5 of the top 7 teams in the SEC. So, and look, I've just said, like, I think it would have made a difference. Had Texas had to go on the road to Knoxville this year, on the road to South Carolina, on the road to LSU, and I get it. The Texas fans are going to argue, oh, we would have beaten them. Maybe. I just think that would have made it a tougher schedule, would have shown us who you really are. That's all my point when I say that. More interconference games, no more scrimmages. Saban talking S. I think Texas has about the easiest playoff schedule. Yeah, look, if you're a Texas fan, you should be ecstatic with this path. Because, look, you get Clemson the first round at home. That's what's so awesome about this. You're going to play at Darrell K. Royal Stadium in Austin. I was just there a couple weeks ago. That place is intimidating. Like, they get loud. The fans are going to be rocking. That place is going to be really, really an awesome home environment for Texas. And then you get Arizona State, who's, no offense to them, Scatterbo's been a fun story. They've been a fun story. But that's not a legit, like, real threat. Like, Texas should handle, they will be, I don't know what the line is, but if I was an odds maker, I'm setting a line right now, I'd have Texas as an 8 to 9 point favorite over Arizona State on a neutral field. We'll see what happens. They got to beat Clemson. We'll see what happens when we get there. But me personally, just kind of thinking out loud here, I'd have Texas as a heavy favorite against Arizona State. Hand in hand, I think Penn State has somewhat easy path. Yeah, they're going to be SMU and Boise. Come on. If you can lose to Vandy, you can lose to Nebraska and Washington, respectively. It's true. Tennessee has the toughest routes. Tom says they got it right. I agree, Tom. I think all said and done, if you're an Alabama fan, you should be pissed off. But I can't get over Bama's 2 losses. We can talk about wins. We can talk about Bama's resume wins. But we can't ignore Oklahoma and Vandy are bad losses. And I'll reiterate, too, for if anybody's new joining us. The best way I heard it say to me was Oklahoma and Vanderbilt were not bowl teams. They became bowl eligible because they beat Alabama. The fact that Vanderbilt and Oklahoma are both 6-6 and going to bowl games is because they beat Alabama. If Bama had taken care of business and beat both those teams like they were supposed to, as heavy favorites in both of them. I want to say like 21-point favorites against both of them. OU would have missed a bowl game and Vanderbilt would have missed a bowl game. They're only going bowling. So your whole argument about, like, against bowl eligible teams, they're only bowl eligible because you lost to them. Alan says half this field is laughable. I kind of agree with, like, this is where it gets really tough for, I think we're all going to watch, right? Because it's a playoff. So I think most people are going to tune in just because of the playoff. But I'd love to see the playoff ratings for an SMU Penn State game. Like, does anybody in Atlanta, Georgia, Houston, Texas, Orlando, Florida, I'm just trying to think of, like, the SEC landscape. Does anybody in those cities, like, give a damn about SMU Penn State? Maybe in Houston because you got Texas ties there with SMU, but, like, and then, like, the winner of that's going to play Boise. What if SMU upsets Penn State? We're going to get SMU Boise in a quarterfinal game? How many tickets are they going to sell at that one? They're going to have to close some of these NFL stadiums. They're going to have to close off the upper bowl because they're going to go, sorry, not enough people bought tickets for this. But I get it. They don't give a damn about selling tickets. It's all about the TV money. All right, we've gone almost an hour here. Y'all can keep commenting if you want, but I'm just going to kind of start to kind of wrap things up here. Clemson against Texas. I think this is a great game for Texas. I think Texas should win. They advance to the quarterfinals. They get Arizona State. Again, I feel like Texas will be a favorite in that one. I feel like Texas has got the easiest path to the semis. Now, Sark, you got to go cut your butt off and do your thing. But I think that's good there. I think Tennessee has got the absolutely most brutal stretch. They got to go to Ohio State, find a way to win up there. Now, Dylan Sampson runs the football well. I've seen at times this year, teams have run Ohio State at times. Michigan moved the ball a little bit last week on them. To me, this is on Dylan Sampson, and Nico's got to cut out the no turnovers, no fumbles, take care of business. Tennessee can win. But my God, the reward is after that, you got to go play 1 seed Oregon, who looked like an absolute machine yesterday. I know Penn State kind of got back into it, but didn't it feel like Dylan Gabriel could just name their number in terms of scoring points? They're absolute juggernaut. Dan Lanning has created something up there. It's just unbelievable. SMU, Penn State, and then the winner of that gets Boise State. Again, this feels very like if you're James Franklin, you going to church today, pull extra money in the donation plate because you got a nice draw there. You got to go beat SMU, who barely got in, and then Boise. Can you imagine if they put Alabama in that spot though? If Bama had been the 11 seed, my gosh. Look, Bama still would have been an underdog to Penn State, but I wouldn't have put a huge line on it. I wouldn't have said, oh, they're hands down gonna, Penn State's gonna take care of business. Bama would have had a real chance to go up there and beat Penn State, and then you would have had Boise. Goodness. And then the last one, it's Indiana, Notre Dame. Should be an intro. I mean, here's the thing. Like Notre Dame, we always call them frauds, and they always get the benefit of the doubt. They go 11-1. They lost to Northern Illinois, and then they won the rest of their crappy schedule, and they get in here. But Indiana did the same. Indiana didn't beat anybody. At least Notre Dame beat a couple of ranked teams this year. I think this is a great chance for Notre Dame to expose Indiana as the frauds they are, or vice versa, for Indiana to expose Notre Dame as the frauds they are and win. But regardless, the next team, that team gets Georgia. Again, the Georgia defense, I still have a lot of confidence in. But Gunnar Stockton, you got 3 weeks here, bro, to get full grasp of this offense, and we'll check the status of Carson back, but it doesn't feel good. It doesn't feel like he's going to be back, right? We'll see. They haven't ruled him out. He's getting the MRI and all that. But Georgia certainly feels more beatable if it's Gunnar Stockton at quarterback. So if I'm just filling out my bracket here, we'll just go hypothetical here. I'll have Texas beating Clemson. I'll go Ohio State over Tennessee, although I think Tennessee could pull that off. It's just going to be tough on the road, man. If this one's in Knoxville, I'd be all over Tennessee. I think Penn State should beat SMU. I want to say Notre Dame beats Indiana at home, but what are the odds that all 4 home favorites win? So I'll go Indiana in the upset of Notre Dame because there's going to be an upset somewhere in the first round. So then I've got Texas against Arizona State. I'll take Texas to advance there. I'll take Oregon to beat either Tennessee or Ohio State. Although Ohio State would be an interesting one because that would be a rematch. And that was close last time. And then Penn State against Boise. Gosh, I got to take Penn State there. I love Boise, and I love the story of Genty. But I'll take Penn State to win that one. And then when I say Indiana, I think Georgia would beat Indiana. So then I'd have Georgia, Penn State in the semis, and Texas versus Oregon in the semis. I'd take that. There would be 2 SEC teams into the semis. But I feel like Tennessee would beat Penn State. I'm sorry, Georgia would beat Penn State, and then Texas versus Oregon, I'd probably go Oregon. And then that would get us a great storyline of an Oregon-Georgia national championship of Kirby versus Dan Lanning, and that would be a great storyline. All right. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you haven't subscribed to Locked On SEC, just click subscribe, give us a like there, and you can be up to date. We'll be dropping videos all week with more reaction to all of the college football playoff stuff. And again, make sure you guys check out our friends over at FanDuel. If you've never signed up before, they got great stuff going on right now. You can new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app giving you everything you need to bet on the NFL and college all in one place. Again, $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. We'll talk to you guys tomorrow right here on Locked On SEC.